Hello and welcome to the Film Mavericks podcast. I'm your host, Jordan Bunch, and today we are talking all about goal setting. I think this is such an important time of year for thoughts and reflections on the past year, on 2018, on looking at our numbers, at our metrics, and thinking about what we want for the future. What's the trajectory that we're headed? What are we trying to accomplish in 2019? And today, I've brought my friend John Bunn on. John is a fantastic wedding filmmaker in Oklahoma, and he's also the host of the How to Film a Wedding podcast, or one of the hosts of the How to Film a Wedding podcast. And one of the things that I always appreciate about John is his a lot of his activity online being around the idea of metrics and setting goals and setting tangible goals and tracking those to make sure that they are on pace and trying to actually achieve them, not just sort of setting these lofty goals, but actually some measurable goals that they can quantify at the end of the time period whether or not they did it. And it's something that I think is probably pretty rare in the filmmaking community. Most of us are sort of artists first, and we just do a business because that lets us do our art. But I think this stuff is incredibly important if we want to grow as filmmakers, as business owners, and uh, build something that can last, that can stand the test of time. And so I'm excited to have this conversation with my friend John. John, thanks for being here, man.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on. I'm excited to chat too.
Awesome. Well, John, maybe you could start out by introducing us if our listeners, our viewers have no idea who you are. Maybe give us a little bit more. I gave you a little intro there, but tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Most likely nobody knows who I am, so that's okay. No, yeah, like you said, I'm in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I started Redeemed Productions, wedding film company in 2007. So I've been doing this for a minute. The first few years was just kind of like figuring things out, not really tracking goals, not really knowing what I was doing, but just enjoying, shooting weddings and enjoying just making more money than I was at my previous job, and just kind of, started the company in '07, turned it into a business really in about 2010 when I really started focusing on the business side of things, not just the creative side of things, because I saw over and over again people would come into the market and be like really cool, really trendy, and then like 2 years later they weren't, shooting weddings anymore because they couldn't make any money doing it. And I've just always been intrigued by, how to make as much money while providing the best service as possible. um, Whenever I got going, it was either kind of, you could be the used car salesman and just be slick and try to sell and sell and sell, or you could be super creative and that was about it.
Mm.
And so it was one of those two things. And I realized early, like, if I could really hone this craft in while, knowing my numbers and knowing my goals, I could turn this into something that would be sustainable, so I wouldn't have to go back and get like a job. So I'm in Tulsa. I've got a wife, 2 kids. We had a company, with 12 employees at one point. Last year I brought it down to just myself and Nina, our main photographer, and launched the How to Film Weddings podcast, like you said, a few months back. And so just really focusing on teaching others how to run their business, how to shoot better, as well as, really honing in and just providing more quality than quantity as we grow our business forward. So that's a nutshell what we're about and where we're at and all that good stuff.
Awesome. Well, very cool. Maybe you can talk to me about. I just want to dive into the topic at hand. So
Yeah.
I'm curious, in this transition that you guys made from 12 full-time people, or 12 people in the studio. I don't know if they're all full-time, probably not. But from 12 folks to just the two of you, and I'm sure that you're still hiring some of those folks from time to time, maybe
Mhm.
on more of a contract basis or something.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think I was on the podcast like early episodes, teens maybe.
Yeah,
And
probably.
and we were talking about like all the people I had around. I had three interns, which they were part time and paid, so they were employees. I had a video manager and a video editor, a photo manager and a photo editor, an office manager and like a marketing person, and then myself, and then Nina. So there was just like a lot of us. And we were shooting all these weddings and doing all this stuff, and like my happy place had kind of gone away, and I was really focused so much on building, the brand and getting bigger, that like I kind of lost my why, or why I was wanting to do it. And I just took a step back, and as I was looking at my goals for 2017, like going into 2018, nope, 2016 going into 2017. This is weird because it's right at the beginning of the year, but
Yeah.
I was looking at the goals, and I was looking at the numbers, and I was able to pay all these people, but I was having to shoot all these extra weddings, and I just started looking and really diving into the numbers. And at the same time, we had raised our prices quite a bit, and so we were shooting less weddings, and I realized that like if I shot 20 less weddings in 2017, I would personally make more money if I were to pare it down. And it seemed like a really good time and transition. So December of 2017, we went down to just the two of us. And yes, we have people that we contract to shoot for us still and to edit for us still, but like it really um, I just got to a place where I was like, I'm going to either just grow this thing to like a nationwide brand, or am going to pull it way back, and I'm going to focus in on 20 to 30 couples a year, and then maybe build back later, because it was kind of becoming just a little, it wasn't necessarily overwhelming, but it was just like I was just doing it to do it. I felt like I
Mm,
wasn't successful if I didn't have a big brand. And what I really was drawn to was the quality side of things, where I think you can have quality obviously if you're doing a lot, but I just loved getting to know my couples, and really started getting lots of messages from people asking me about how I've grown my company to a six-figure plus company, and have kept it there for over 7 years. And people are asking me how I'm charging what I'm charging, and I really started enjoying the interaction between the wedding film community and teaching what I knew. I don't know everything, but 12 years doing it, 13 years now. People started asking questions, and so like that really started, because I had pulled back last year, I could really look at and say, hey, I would love to do more education. I love helping this community, these new people. If I can help them save a year or two of time knowing things that I didn't know, that would be awesome. So now, fast forward to 2019, it's myself full time, and then Nina, our photographer, is here part time, and then everybody else that I have do anything for me is contract work. In 2018, I edited every single wedding. When I inherited and let go of everybody except for Nina last December, I had 21 weddings in the queue. And
wow.
so I had 21 weddings and only two to shoot between December and April. So by the time we got to April, I was all the way caught up. I had edited 21 weddings in 4 months, and kept it that way. And and like throughout 2018, I did all of the editing. I hired second shooters, but I just wanted it to be way simpler. And busy was my badge of honor. I thought if I was busy, I was doing what was right. And I realized quickly, by finally looking at those numbers and those goals, that if I were to pull things back, I could not only have a happier life, but like I could make more money. So in 2018, I made the most I ever made off of 20 less weddings. So it was really, it's been very happy over here in the Bun House.
Nice. Awesome. I think that's so important to have, and that's why I wanted to ask the question, is because having a time where you can reflect on what makes you happy in life, on what your goals are, what you want to accomplish, can really have a dramatic effect on how you're going to run your business. And so for you, having that time of reflection and realizing, okay, yeah, I've built this cool thing, but it's not really what out of life. And to be able to back and say, okay, let me retool and make this business what I actually want it to be. I think that's fantastic. We get the same thing, a lot of questions about building a volume brand because Ladybird Studios is pretty unique. And so lots of people ask questions about that because they want to start their own. And I think I'm always thrilled to answer those questions for people. But at the same time, I think it's so important to answer like the why question. Why do you want to build that? Um, and because otherwise you may end up doing something that you hate,
Right.
or you may find out something that you love and that's what you should be doing. And I've kind of gotten to a place where I've realized, like, for me, like, this is a happier place for me than running my boutique, wedding company. And so
Exactly.
I've kind of really shifted where, I'll be pretty happy if I only shoot, two or three weddings myself with my boutique company this year in 2019. Kind of focus the rest of my energy onto my volume company, Ladybird Studios, and which I'm kind of like stopping calling it my volume wedding company and just calling it my wedding company,
Hmm.
because that's really kind of where I'm shifting my energy is there, and then with my corporate brand, Film Mavericks, as well. So, but yeah, I think it's so important that we stop and sort of reflect on what makes me happy in life, and also where do I want to go long term.
Hmm.
So this is um, let's talk about sort of before we get into like the what your goals are 2019, what you're thinking about in 2019. How does well, give me a bigger picture, like,
Hmm.
what do you want your life, your studio, what do you want things to look like in 5 years from now?
Yeah, and I think just that question in itself, I think everyone should ask them that question. I mean, we don't, all know exactly where we want to be in 5 years, but you know, just asking the question makes you reevaluate what you're doing. And I think before even answering that, like most of us just kind of wander through our business life and say, "Well, I don't know how many weddings I'm going to shoot this year because I don't know how many people have contacted me yet. If they're willing to pay me, I'll do the wedding. Or if, I don't know when I'm going to shoot, or I don't know if I'm going to get to take time off this year. I don't know if I'm going to, because at the beginning especially, like you're just trying to eat. You're trying to pay your bills. And so I remember that time, from 2007, 8, and 9 was just like, yes, if you have a pulse and you will pay me, I will film your wedding.
Yeah.
Because, at that time I was charging $1,200 or something per wedding. So, I would, everybody asking themselves where they want to be in 5 years does make you really take a step back and just look and say, oh, that's me kind of controlling my destiny instead of my business controlling me. And so, up until maybe 5 or 6 years ago, at the end of the year is whenever I would look back and say, well, this is what I did, instead
Mm,
of knowing at the beginning of the year, what is my roadmap? What is my plan? And everybody is different with their business, but I even posted in the Wedding Film Academy group just in the last couple of days, like what things are you measuring? I've got several metrics that I'm looking at. I'm a numbers guy, but, just measuring how many weddings I want to shoot, how many weeks I want to take off, how many dollars do I want to make, the big one, and so, but yes, answering the question, like where I want to be in 5 years. I would love to be, I love shooting weddings and I love telling the story of love. And we've built our brand to a very, nearing the high end of the wedding market where we're charging a lot and that allows us to shoot a lot less. Somewhere in the 10 to 12 weddings in a year is probably the 5 years from now version of what I'm doing, plus focusing a lot more back on education. I was always afraid to even put myself in the education space because I haven't gone to like a camera school to learn the basics of why a camera does what it does. I kind of taught myself how to shoot on my own. I've got lots of things that I can always be getting better at. So I always felt like vulnerable, like, well, people are going to call me out and tell me I'm, a fake because I don't know why this color temperature needs to be this on that or that. And, I just know this is what makes it look good on the film or but like education is really big for me, and I can see that being something for me. Not that I am teaching necessarily, but like helping people to find the information that they need to find to get better at not only shooting but running their business. And that's really the niche for me that I really enjoy is like if I can help somebody go from making $20,000 a year to 40,000, or help them to get to their first six-figure year or something like that, that makes me so, I mean, that's the American dream, for me, was like, man, if I can replace my income. And then I remember the first year that I doubled my income, and then the first year I quadrupled what I was doing at my other job. And it's like, the life that I get to currently live 12 years in, in 2018, I took 7 weeks off paid with my family. I shot 30 weddings. This year my goal is 25, but I shot 30 weddings. So I had 20 weekends off, which is the most I've ever had in 10 years. We made more than we've ever made. We saved more than we ever saved. And so those are the things that I was, looking at for at the beginning of last year. And so moving into the 5 years from now, being able to have a brand that is teaching people and providing a service that helps people, and getting paid to do that, alongside staying in that thing that I love, in that sweet spot for me, which is somewhere in, one a month, two a month, in certain months. That's where I want to be in 5 years. I mean, all the specifics, I have no idea.
Yeah. No, that's good. That's really helpful. I think just to kind of take a step back and look at, long term what I want, and then how does my longer term plan inform my shorter term plans?
Exactly.
So let's talk more about that. What does well, let's kind of put ourselves in the shoes of a wedding filmmaker who is, um, maybe, they're probably, most wedding filmmakers I think are in the place where they are working another job and kind of building up their business to the point of kind of hoping that one day they will be able to make that jump to full time. I'm going to kind
Mhm.
of guess that that's where the majority of wedding filmmakers are.
Sure. I
Um,
remember those
so
days.
so kind of put yourself in those shoes. What are the things that you would think about, like, if I'm going to sit down here as that wedding filmmaker and make a list of what are the things that I need to be measuring
Mhm.
so that in 2020 I'm ready to make that jump to full time, to live that dream of mine. What are the things that I need to be measuring?
Yeah. I immediately think about Dave Ramsey and how he always says you got to get the boat close enough to the dock so when you're about to jump, you don't get wet. And so, like, that's, for whenever I was going from part time into full time, I was working at a church, and I was, my side hustle was shooting weddings, shooting football games, shooting anything that people would pay me money to do. And it was a lot of work. I mean, I know a lot of people, these days it's really, a keyword, a hot word to say, to hustle, or to work so much. You've got to be on the grind, you got to do your side hustle. I was doing that before it was like a word, or or a hashtag, but
Yeah.
or before hashtags existed. But to me, I would want to get, as much the boat as close to the dock as possible. And what that really means is, if you're working a job, and let's say, you got to look at numbers. So if you're making, $30,000 at your job now, and on the side you're making 10,000 as, a wedding filmmaker, and you've shot, five weddings for $2,000 or something. Um, I would wait as long as possible to where it is ridiculous to not jump in full time. Like, that's where I'm at, after I was so just risk averse back, and that I would just jump in, get wet, we'll see what happens. But now it would be, I would want to have enough weddings on the books to say, hey, worst case scenario, I can pay my bills. And I know that if I have full-time hours available, I'm working a 40-hour job, and over here with this 10 to 20 extra hours a week that I'm putting into my side hustle, I'm making 70% as much as I do in my real job. If it's getting that close, and that, like, by doing that, you can, with 20 more hours a week or 30 more hours a week to focus on your actual brand, that's when I'm starting to get ready for it. So, like, to do that, you got to know your numbers really well. You got to know your cost really well, and it's, not necessarily as sexy as talking about a drone or about a new lens. But you got to know, okay, I need to make this much money plus taxes to be able to replace my income. And that's all I'm looking at is it's a math equation. And so however many weddings that is times the amount that you're going to make per wedding minus expenses equals the money you'll make. And if that can be enough to give you bread and water and pay your lights and pay your pay your house, that's whenever I would do it, because the sooner you can get into being full time thinking about the thing that you're building, the sooner that you're going to like be able to make even more. And so that first year, whenever I went 2009, I quit my job in July, and I had 13 or 14 weddings on the books for 2010. And I had, at that time, I was filming football games in Oklahoma, which is crazy. Um, and I was making somewhere around $3,000 or $4,000 a weekend filming football games for like mini pee wee football. It was crazy. But I
Uh-huh.
knew that like from July until February, I was covered with what I already had. So I had from there till February to book out the rest of my year. And so by the time February of the next year rolled around, I had done bridal shows, I had done advertising, and I had like 32, 33 weddings on the books, and I was off running.
Nice. Yeah, that's really good. Okay, so let's talk about um, let's talk about your goals. So this is we're kind of shifting into the realm of someone who is full time now, and kind of thinking about that person who has gone full time, but who is ready to increase what they're doing.
Mhm.
They've been able to sustain themselves, and now they're looking for growth. What
Mhm.
does it look like to set some goals that are measurable, that are attainable, and that can launch you forward in what you're doing?
Yeah. I mean, I think everybody has to look within, and, some people they're motivated by money, some people are motivated by time. If you're motivated by being able to push pause at work and go see your kid's game today, if you're motivated by, success and the fact of like winning awards or having clout amongst the wedding film community or traveling or there, so first of all is defining like what is success to you. Success to me is making an income that I can live comfortably while having the freedom to do and go like spend time with my family. Having two little girls, one of them is in second grade and one of them is 2 years old. And so like what success looks like to me is being able to like I today's my first day back from 30 days off, just spent with the family, just relaxed, tiny bits of work, but mainly just chilling with the family. So, setting those goals in front of you, if you don't have a family or like kids to come home to right now, if you're in a different stage of life, if you're in college, or if you're, just asking yourself, what does success look like to you, helps you a lot. And so today, this is 2019 now. I mean, I'm looking up at my goals board, and I've realized, to me, the more that I can trim out, the more simple I can make my life, the happier I am. And so, like we were talking about, going from 12 employees to two. Um, 2 years ago, we shot 39 video weddings, and I had other teams going out to shoot. Obviously, I didn't shoot all of those, but I shot about 35 weddings and was just exhausted and like just too much. I couldn't sustain that. That's just too many weddings for me. Some people, that's a huge win for them. Um, so my goals for 2019 look like, how can I make as much for as little time as possible? And so I know that sounds pretty simple, but I sit today with 17 weddings booked for this year, at the highest average that I've ever had for just their starting opening, what their base to pay me is. Um, my goal's 25, and I'm gonna like I just raised my prices again, because I really want to only hit 25 weddings, because I want half of the year to be able to focus on family and building how to film weddings, our podcast, and the education side. Because I feel like at a certain point there was like a 5 year window of time where it was a blur, because I was just filming weddings and editing and filming and editing, and years were going by and I didn't have a plan. And just by having a whiteboard up or having a spreadsheet with all of my numbers has really helped me to stay focused. And if somebody contacts me today and says they have X amount of dollars budget for their wedding video and it's $2,000 less than I charge, I can confidently say I'm going to have to pass on that because it doesn't align with my actual goals. I was asked to second shoot on New Year's Eve for a photographer here in town, and he was going to pay me a lot of money. He had someone bail on him, and I didn't have anything going, but I was able to confidently look at my numbers, know how much money was coming in, and say, actually, I'm just going to spend New Year's Eve with my family. And some people might think I'm crazy for that. It doesn't matter because that was my goal. Um,
Mm.
so anyway.
Yeah, no, that's really good. Um, okay, so tell me about the um, I think having a goal of you've got this goal of 25 weddings,
Mhm,
and it's sort of a it sounds like it's sort of a hard goal. Like I'm gonna not like difficult to achieve, but like this is where I'm gonna hit, and I'm gonna do everything I can to not hit more than that either,
mhm,
because the other goal is more time with your family than you had when you were shooting 35 weddings.
mhm,
So talk to me about, you're at the 17, you're at 17 weddings right now as of January 2nd booked for the year,
mhm.
and so that means you've only got, 8 more weddings to book for the year. So what does it look like to sort of walk that line and try to achieve that specific goal, and why have you set this specific number of 25?
Yeah. So I was meeting with Rick and Sarah Pendergraph the other day. They're here in Tulsa as well. We had lunch and we were talking and, about our goals and stuff, and just about like 25 weddings is my goal. And Sarah was like, "Well, would you take 26?" And I was like, "Yeah, if they're willing to pay." And it's like I have this really hard time, especially from where I grew up with no money to now. Um, to saying no, even like I say no to anybody that's not willing to pay me. That's easy to do. So to be at 17 weddings at the very beginning of the year is pretty scary for me. As I'm really preaching and trying my best to stay at 25, I will be honest. If somebody is willing to pay me for the 26th wedding, once I raise the prices, it's going to be really hard to say no. Um, because I just have that as more of a buffer. If I'm between like 22 and 28, 27, something like that, I'm still going to be in like my happy place. And I think defining that, is like if somebody's willing to pay me $10,000 to come out on a Saturday where I'm not booked, and my wife is like, "Yeah, we're not doing anything anyway. Um, I'll take some new furniture, or I'll take, like something like that." It's a little bit different. I was having lunch with Rick and Sarah Pendergraph from Penn Weddings a couple weeks back, and we were talking just about goals and prices, and they're here in Tulsa as well. So we chatted just about that, and Sarah asked me, 25 weddings, what happens after you book 25? Would you take a 26th? And I was like, yeah, probably. And it's like that's just me being honest. I'm trying my very best. I did 30 this last year in 2018, 39 the year before, and my goal is to raise the prices enough to where 25, 26, somewhere in there is really where it, that two in a month is a happy, two editing, two shooting, without hiring anybody to do any of that other stuff. That's like my happy place. And I don't care if it makes other wedding filmmakers happy or doesn't make them happy. I just look within and know my truth of like, that's somewhere in there in my happy place. So I say 25. We'll see if it goes past 25, but just as a throwing it out there, we've raised our prices now. Our videos start at 5,000 for, two shooters with 7 hours and a 6-minute film. Everything else is an upgrade. So, we're getting up into the five figures for some of these weddings, for video only. And then we also have our photo side of our company too. So it's a little less expensive than the video, but most of our weddings are getting close up there to the $8,000 to $10,000 for their wedding film. And so at that rate, to me, I'm happy to go out and shoot if they're willing to pay it. I'm just trying to find that happy place of like I'm charging this amount and it is actually pulling back, the actual flow of the amount of people that can actually even afford that. So, I got two messages this weekend from sisters of brides that I did their weddings in the last couple of years, and they spent, very high six-figure amounts on their total wedding, and they're like, "Hey, are you available this day or this date? I'm about to book my venue." So I know some of these weddings are going to book me, and so I'm spending little to nothing on marketing and just really focusing on how can I make quality films, and 25 to 27, 26 of them I'd be happy with in 2019.
Yeah, very cool. Um, okay, and I want to hear. I think it's always interesting, and I know there's other folks out there who are doing both, doing photo and video. Um, Talk to me about the sort of some of the goals and measurements there as well.
As in, like, what would the photo?
Yeah, I mean, what does this look like to sort of divide your attention between these two categories
Mhm.
and kind of grow both sides of those things. I'm
Yeah.
assuming most of your metrics you're talking about here are just video. You're
Yeah.
trying to hit 25 wedding videos.
Yeah, and we
Um,
have metrics for the photos too. We're trying to hit 20. We did 22 weddings last year, for photo, and I hired Nina to run our studio as well as run the photo department. She had worked in another studio for 7 years or something, so she's been shooting for about 10 years. And I really just, I mean, I pay her well, but I let her run it herself. She doesn't want to market, she doesn't want to deal with contracts or finding brides. So, our workflow in the office, I enjoy meeting the couples and talking to them. And not everybody books us for both video and photo. Sometimes people just book us for photo, sometimes just for video. So, when people reach out to our company, I'm the one that's talking to them. Once we have gotten really close to booking them or we're meeting with them in person, that's when Nina comes in and introduces herself. So she's kind of got, like, in her mind, the best of both worlds because she doesn't have to deal with sales or selling herself. She can just be creative and, shoot. And so I'm overseeing it and saying, "Hey, I like this color. I like these images. I like this vibe that matches the video, that we're trying to do." And we talk together and we figure out together, numbers. But, like, when it comes down to it, I'm running the company. I've hired, you know, a, a, a portion of our company to be just the photos, and I'm letting her run with that. And I give her pretty open freedom to do whatever she wants with that. And I'm booking them, you know, and trying to stay within that 20 or so range. And what we've done, I mean, when we meet, we're figuring out what can we take out of the process, what can we take out to just get it down to exactly what a couple needs to book us, and to, exactly what's in the packages. And so it's nice to have somebody to, like, bounce ideas and stuff off of. But goals wise, I'm kind of communicating to her, here's where I want to go. What do you think? And she's been around now. This is her sixth year working for me. So she knows, we should think about this or we should think about that. And so she's behind all of the money and the spreadsheets and all the details. And I'm, like, coming to her with all my ideas, and we should get this piece of gear and that thing. And so it's a nice little balance to not just have free reign, to my bank account.
yeah. Yep. Very cool. Okay, so tell me if you have some advice for someone who has never really set goals before. They've just sort of like gone at things and they've um, you know whatever happens, and I'm trying to push forward, but I don't necessarily set specific goals or anything. It's just sort of like, okay, well, I'd like to, I'd like to increase the amount of income we're making. That
Mhm.
just, these sort of broad generic thoughts, but not really setting specific goals. What are some thoughts, some ideas that you have for someone who says, okay, this is the year, I'm really going to take this seriously. Um, what are you going to recommend to that person? Like, where's the
Yeah.
starting place?
So, like, whenever you're first getting going on setting goals, you're not going to be able to know everything, or it feels like this big mountain to climb. And there's no right or wrong whenever you're figuring this out. Like, if you get a yellow pad and just kind of write where you want to be or how much you want to make, or I always begin with the end in mind. And so it's like, if I want to make $100,000, that's my goal, like I want to start with that goal and work my way backward. So if that's the case and 100 grand is what I want to make and I charge 5,000 per wedding, I need to shoot 20 weddings. Or if I charge 2,500 per wedding, I need to shoot 40 weddings. And so somebody that's just getting going, I'm just going to take an hour to just write out everything, like to just give yourself a brain dump, where it's like just dump all the stuff in your brain onto a piece of paper and say, do I care about measuring this? Do I not care? Do I care how many YouTube followers I have, or do I care how many leads I get? And so anything that's measurable is something that I would just look at putting on a spreadsheet, making a column for January through December, and then at the end of it, putting a number that says X amount of dollars or X amount of inquiries or views on YouTube or subscribers or whatever. Um, and just slowly every month going back and looking at the end of the month if I've gotten any further or where I'm at with that, being able to look down the mountain instead of up the mountain's nice. And just every month kind of tweaking it a little bit. It took me 6, 7 months of just trying to track all these goals to really know what I cared about. Like at a certain point, it was like I'm tracking how many everything. Like it was just too many details, and it was like what I really care about is how many inquiries I'm getting, how many I'm booking, how many followers I have on the few platforms that I'm really pushing, and working from that. So if I'm new, you just got to give yourself a little bit of grace. You got to give yourself a little bit of time to really just focus in on what's important to you. That's where I would get going with it.
Hmm. Good stuff, John. Good stuff. Well, yeah. Is there what else? What else do you want to leave with our audience? If they're going to leave here and you have a session, sit down, set some goals. What else do you want to leave with them? As final thoughts here.
Yeah, I think that having somebody else that you can, another person that does what you do, that you can text back and forth with, that you
Hmm.
can bounce ideas off of in your market or in another market or on Facebook. What we're providing with the podcasts, that we have, just jumping in and making sure you're not too proud to take advice from somebody that might be newer than you or have been doing it for a lot longer than you. But sitting down and being able to bounce ideas off of somebody else is huge. Having just a buddy that, hey, you want to watch my film? What do you think? Being able to take critique, being able to say, hey, I'm charging this much for this package. What are you doing? Let's compare notes. I have Nick in Kansas who I've been doing that with, and my business is so much better because we've been pushing each other to set better goals, and just having an outside perspective is really huge. And then the other thing too is just like looking at what is in your life that doesn't need to be there. I don't want to go all philosophical, but like what is hanging over your head that you hate about? Is your studio messy? Is your office at your house too messy, or is your inbox too full? What is in your way of just being able to focus on your goals and your dreams? Because we always are working in our business and not working on our business. And if you just say, hey, on Mondays from 8 to 9 a.m., I'm going to look at my goals. I'm going to start out my week and look at the goals. I'm going to see what's on my plate for the week. I'm going to plan. I'm going to be intentional. And that's the main thing for me this year is like, I'm just going to be very intentional. And you can't be very intentional if there's so many things hanging over your head that you don't know which thing is the most important. So I just spent the entire 2018 saying, do I need this? Is this something that actually helps me achieve my goals? And is this something that I actually need around? And so, I mean, we threw things away. We got rid of gear we didn't need. We moved desks out that we didn't need. We sold things on Facebook Market. I mean, we just decluttered our life. So, like, it is a very, very simple process for us now within our company, which has made it very, very easy to see what is my goal. And so if there's things that are in your way, just decluttering your life, whatever that means, that will help you with your goals. And then also, um, the last little bit, is just as simple as it might sound, get a whiteboard and write out, a column for January through December, and at the very end have, this is my main goal for the year. If it's 25 weddings, at the very end it should say 25, and the first column saying January I have 17, and then in February I have 19, and or whatever it is. And being able to just look back at those goals, because busyness will rob you of your year, and busyness will rob you of making those goals happen. 3 months will go by and you'll say, oh my goodness, I haven't even thought about my business. It's just been 90 days. And what the heck am I doing? Like, I've forgotten. So having those goals keep you, that north star of like, oh, I only want 25 weddings. So it's easy for me to say no to that wedding that wants to book me for less than what I want to charge. Or I can say no to going to that venue open house that that's out of town, that I get asked to go to, and like learning to say no to things. That was the huge thing for me in 2018. Was it's okay to say no. It should either be a heck yes or a no, and that's where it goes. So
Mm,
that's the main thing for me and what I'm working on, and that's how I teach, and how I've been helping as many people, is just saying what I've been doing, and this is what I'm doing. I am literally trying to say no to as many things as possible, and I'm trying, like, right after this podcast, I'm taking everything out of my office and putting it back in, and only keeping the things that I need in my office, just as a fresh start for the year, a fresh start, and getting things so simple that I'm able to focus on what really matters to me.
love it. Awesome, man. Well, this has been fantastic. If our listeners want to hear more about what you guys are doing, whether it's in your business or in the educational space, maybe give me a quick rundown of where they need to go.
Yeah. So the podcast that Nick Miller out of Kansas and I started this time last year, or we started the podcast a few months ago, is How to Film Weddings. It's on all of the platforms. So if they search How to Film Weddings, they're going to find it. YouTube's really big for us. So youtube.com/, How to Film Weddings. We're putting all of our podcasts there, all of our tutorials there. And honestly, it's very much just a conversation with lots of different people, just really trying to get down to how to grow a business, how to make it successful. So, how to film weddings on all the platforms. We try to make it as simple as possible. And then my work is redeemedproductions.com. And I'm all over the Wedding Film Academy group and everything. But, I'm always on there. If anybody wants to reach out to me, just John, at redeemedproductions.com. I'd love to chat. I get a big kick out of answering questions for people and just helping them with their business. I don't know it all, but I've definitely made about every mistake you can make. So my goal is to help people not get involved and make mistakes that they can skip. So if I can help somebody do that, that's what gets me excited in the morning, to get up and like help people grow their business and get better. So those are the main places they can find me.
Awesome. Thanks, John. I appreciate your time this morning and all your thoughts. And here's to an awesome 2019.
Let's do this
Cheers,
thing.
friend.
Cheers. All right. Thanks for having me on. Thanks everybody for listening.